The complete history of ancient Persia. The night Persepolis burned. Persepolis was not meant to fall. It was built to endure time itself. Stone carved for eternity. Columns raised to impress gods as much as men. It was the ceremonial heart of the Persian Empire, a city designed not for defense, but for symbolism. And yet, on a single night, it burned. Flames climbed marble walls. Roofs collapsed. Smoke erased centuries of ambition. What had taken generations to build vanished in hours. This was not merely the destruction of a city. It was the end of an idea. To understand why Persepolis fell, we must look far beyond the fire, back to the origins of Persia itself, a land that forged survivors. Long before empire, Persia was geography. Harsh deserts stretched across the land. Mountains divided valleys. Rivers were precious. Survival was never guaranteed. This environment shaped its people. Early tribes learned cooperation or perished. Mobility mattered. Strength mattered. Adaptability mattered most of all. Among these tribes were the Persians, a people without cities, without monuments, and without power. At first, they were subjects. Life under the Medes. To the west, the Medes ruled. They controlled much of the Iranian plateau, commanding tribute from smaller peoples, including the Persians. The Persians obeyed. They served. They waited. But domination did not erase identity. It sharpened it. Under Median rule, Persian leaders learned administration, warfare, and diplomacy. They observed power from the inside. And when opportunity arrived, they were ready. The rise of Cyrus. Around the early 6th century BCE, Cyrus was born. His origins were royal, but his significance would become legendary. Ancient sources describe dreams, prophecies, and omens surrounding his birth, stories likely shaped by later admiration. What is historically certain is this: Cyrus led a rebellion against Media. Against expectation, he succeeded. Rather than destroying the Medes, he united them with the Persians, creating something entirely new. A kingdom built not on annihilation, but integration. A new model of rule. Cyrus expanded rapidly. Lydia fell. Babylon surrendered. Territories across Asia came under Persian control. Yet Cyrus did something almost unheard of in the ancient world. He governed with restraint. Religions were respected. Local customs preserved. Administrations retained. This policy was not moral idealism. It was practical governance. People did not revolt. They cooperated. Empire, for the first time, became sustainable. The First World Empire. By the time of Cyrus's death, Persia had become the largest empire the world had ever known. From the Aegean Sea to Central Asia, lands were connected by roads, laws, and systems. Satraps governed provinces. Taxes were standardized. Communication improved dramatically. This was not chaos. It was organization on a scale never before achieved. Darius and the architecture of power. After periods of instability, Darius I reshaped Persia. He refined administration, introduced standardized coinage, strengthened legal systems, and he built Persepolis. Persepolis was not a capital in the modern sense. It was ceremonial, symbolic, intentional. Reliefs carved into stone depicted dozens of cultures bringing tribute, not in chains, but in orderly procession. The message was clear. Persia ruled not through terror, but through structure. Pressure from the west. As Persia expanded, resistance followed. In the west, Greek city-states watched warily. Small, divided, and fiercely independent, they resisted Persian influence. Conflicts followed. Some Persian campaigns failed. Some succeeded. These wars did not destroy Persia, but they strained it. Resources were spent. Focus shifted. Confidence slowly eroded. The weight of scale, empires age. Administration grows complex. Trust becomes fragile. Local corruption spreads. By the late Achaemenid period, Persia remained vast, but increasingly brittle. Rebellions appeared. Royal succession became dangerous. Central authority weakened. From the outside, Persia still looked invincible. Inside, it was tired. Alexander's advance. Alexander of Macedon entered Asia in the late 4th century BCE. He admired Persian culture. He studied its strategies. He understood its weaknesses. His army was smaller, but faster, more flexible, more unified. Persian forces retreated. Cities surrendered. Momentum shifted. Until Alexander reached Persepolis. Fire and uncertainty. Persepolis was captured largely intact. What happened next remains debated. Ancient sources disagree. Some describe revenge. Others describe celebration turned tragic. Some suggest political symbolism. What is certain is this: the palace is burned. Whether intentional or accidental, the destruction marked a psychological end to Persian imperial authority. The fire did what armies could not. It erased permanence. What did not die? Persia did not vanish. Its administrative systems influenced later empires. Its ideas of governance endured. Its culture shaped successors from the Seleucids to Rome. Modern archaeology suggests continuity beyond conquest. Persia did not collapse into silence. It transformed. And the true mystery lies not only in how Persepolis burned, but in what survived beneath its ashes. After the fire, before the fall, the destruction of Persepolis marked an ending, but not the beginning. By the time the flames rose over its palaces, the Persian Empire had already lived its greatest story. The fire did not create collapse. It revealed it. To understand how Persia reached such heights, and why its fall stunned the ancient world, we must step backward to the moment Persia learned something no empire before it truly mastered: how to rule. Not through endless war, not through terror alone, but through systems, structure, and control. The test after Cyrus: when Cyrus the Great died, uncertainty followed. History had seen this pattern before. Empires built around a single figure often fracture the moment that figure disappears. Power vacuums invite rebellion. Provinces test boundaries. Generals compete. Yet Persia did not fracture. It expanded. Cambyses II, son of Cyrus, inherited the throne. He lacked his father's patience and restraint, but he possessed ambition in abundance. His target was Egypt. The conquest of Egypt. Egypt was not merely another territory. It was ancient beyond memory. Its institutions had survived millennia. Its people believed divine order protected their land. Cambyses invaded anyway. Against expectation, Persian forces defeated Egypt's armies and absorbed one of the world's oldest civilizations into a new imperial system. This victory changed history. For the first time, a single empire ruled lands stretching from the Indus River to the Nile. Persia was no longer regional. It was global. Victory without stability. Conquest is easier than control. Ancient sources portray Cambyses as volatile and severe. While some accounts are exaggerated, historical evidence confirms unrest during his reign. Administration weakened. Trust eroded. Confusion spread. Then Cambyses died suddenly. What followed was chaos. Crisis of legitimacy. A man appeared claiming royal blood. He seized the throne. Provinces hesitated. Rebellions erupted. The empire stood on the edge of fragmentation. This moment would have destroyed a weaker state. Persia survived because someone understood power differently. The rise of Darius. Darius was not born to rule. He rose through connection, calculation, and support from key elites. Once crowned, he acted decisively. But his most important act was not military. It was administrative. Darius documented his rule. The Behistun inscription, high on a cliff face, Darius carved his story into stone. The Behistun inscription listed rebellions, victories, and lands under Persian control. It was written in multiple languages, ensuring it could be read across cultures. This was more than propaganda. It was a declaration of order, a warning that rebellion would be remembered, a message that authority was permanent. Persia was not improvising. It was institutionalizing power. The birth of imperial governance. Darius understood a truth few conquerors grasped. Fear fades. Systems endure. He divided the empire into satrapies, provinces governed by satraps. But power was deliberately fragmented. Military leaders answered to the king. Tax officials reported separately. Judges remained independent. No single official could seize control. Rebellion became difficult. Corruption became manageable. Persia transformed from empire to mechanism. Roads, taxes, and time, infrastructure followed. Roads connected continents. Courier stations allowed rapid communication. Taxation was standardized rather than arbitrary. For the first time in history, distance became manageable. An ancient observer famously wrote that no mortal traveled faster than the Persian messenger. Empire had learned speed. Religion as stability. Persian governance respected belief. Rather than impose religion, the empire preserved local temples, priesthoods, and traditions. This approach minimized resistance and maintained continuity. Order mattered more than uniformity. This tolerance was strategic. Subjects obeyed because their lives remained intact. Their identities remained recognized. Stability replaced feared. Persepolis, the symbol, Persepolis was not a capital of trade or population. It was a stage, a place where empire performed itself. Stone reliefs depicted delegations from every corner of the empire bringing tribute, not as captives, but as participants in a larger order. Each culture preserved, each represented, each subordinate. The message was unmistakable. Persia ruled the world by organizing it. Resistance from the west. Beyond Persia's western borders lay the Greek city-states. They were small, divided, often hostile to one another. Yet they shared resistance to imperial rule. Conflicts followed. Persia did not underestimate Greece, but it did not fully understand it either. Battles became legends not because Persia lacked strength, but because resistance was unexpected. The wars drained resources. Pride hardened. Compromise faded. The cost of scale. Empires grow heavy with success. Communication slows. Local officials gain independence. Central authority weakens. Persia entered this phase. Court politics intensified. Succession became dangerous. Trust within leadership declined. The system still functioned, but confidence was gone. Warning signs. Rebellions flared at the edges. Taxes increased. Military loyalty wavered. Yet Persepolis continued to shine. Ceremonies continued. Gold flowed. The illusion of permanence held. But illusions cannot govern forever. A new observer emerges. Beyond Persia's borders, a small kingdom watched carefully. Macedonia. Its future leader studied Persian systems, not to copy them, but to defeat them. He saw strength, but he also saw rigidity, delay, division, and he understood something Persia had forgotten. Adaptability decides survival. The question beneath the ruins. Modern archaeology raises unsettling possibilities. Administrative records vanish suddenly. Archives appear deliberately destroyed. Provincial transitions occur before invasion. Some regions may have already accepted change, which suggests Persia's fall was not purely military. It may have been administrative, psychological, internal, a surrender before conquest. The betrayal theory explained carefully. This does not mean Persia collapsed willingly. It means loyalty fractured, confidence dissolved, authority eroded. When Alexander arrived, some doors were already open. The fire at Persepolis was not the cause. It was the confirmation. Closing reflection. Persia did not fail to rule. It ruled too well for too long. Its systems outlived its unity. Its strength hid its fractures. Its symbols masked its exhaustion. And in the next chapter, Persia meets the force that would test whether systems alone can save an empire. An empire that didn't collapse, but cracked. The Persian Empire did not fall in a single moment. There was no instant when the world changed overnight. No single battle that erased centuries of rule. What happened was slower and far more revealing. Persia cracked. The systems still functioned. The palaces still stood. The gold still flowed. But beneath the surface, confidence was fading. Authority was thinning. Unity was weakening. By the late 4th century BCE, Persia was not weak. It was tired. And tired empires rarely notice danger until it is already inside their borders. The illusion of permanence. To outsiders, Persia looked eternal. Its borders stretched across continents. Its administrative systems were unmatched. Its kings ruled from cities designed to project cosmic order and divine favor. Generations had grown up believing Persian rule was simply how the world worked. But permanence is an illusion empires often believe about themselves. Decades after Darius and Xerxes, the discipline that once held the empire together had softened. Satraps grew powerful. Loyalty shifted from principle to profit. Persia still commanded obedience, but no longer inspired belief. A young observer in the West, far from the Persian heartland, a young prince was paying close attention. Alexander of Macedon was educated in Greek philosophy, military history, and statecraft. He studied Persia not as an enemy to hate, but as a system to understand. He admired Cyrus. He respected Persian organization. He studied Persian mistakes. To Alexander, Persia was not invincible. It was predictable. And when he became king, he acted on that understanding. The decision that changed history. Alexander's decision to march east shocked the ancient world. Macedonia was small. Greece was divided. Persia was vast. By all conventional logic, the campaign should have failed. But Alexander did not plan to fight Persia the way others had. He would not challenge its full strength at once. He would move faster than it could respond, crossing into Asia Minor. In 334 BCE, Alexander crossed into Asia Minor with a relatively small but disciplined army. Persian commanders underestimated him. They had larger forces, greater resources, decades of imperial experience. What they lacked was coordination. Local Persian leaders hesitated, uncertain whether Alexander was a threat, a negotiator, or a temporary nuisance. This hesitation cost them momentum. Alexander pressed forward. The first psychological blow, at Issus, Alexander encountered Darius III himself. The battle was chaotic, fought in difficult terrain that neutralized Persia's numerical advantage. Confusion spread. Lines broke. Then came the moment that echoed across the empire. Darius withdrew from the battlefield. Ancient sources debate the details, but the impact is undisputed. The image of the great king retreating shattered the perception of Persian invulnerability. For the first time, fear moved eastward. The power of belief. Persian soldiers continued to fight with courage. But belief matters more than numbers. Once the idea spread that the king could retreat, uncertainty followed. Commanders questioned orders. Cities reassessed loyalty. Empires survive on shared confidence. At Issus, that confidence fractured. Cities face a choice. As Alexander advanced, cities confronted a decision: resist and risk destruction, or surrender and preserve life. Alexander encouraged surrender through policy rather than threat. He preserved temples, respected customs, and retained local administrators. This approach was familiar. It echoed Cyrus. Persian elites noticed the parallel, and some reconsidered where legitimacy now lay. Speed versus scale. Persia's greatest strength, its size, became a liability. Orders traveled slowly. Coordination broke down. Satraps acted independently. Alexander moved faster than imperial bureaucracy could adapt. By controlling roads and supply routes, he weakened Persia without needing constant battle. The empire was being outmaneuvered, not overwhelmed. The last stand at Gaugamela. In 331 BCE, Persia gathered its strength for a decisive confrontation. At Gaugamela, Darius assembled forces from across the empire. The battlefield was chosen carefully. Preparation was thorough. This was Persia's opportunity to reassert control. But coordination failed again. Commands conflicted. Units hesitated. Openings appeared. Alexander exploited them. When Darius withdrew once more, organized resistance collapsed. The empire did not fall instantly, but its center was gone. The capitals opened their gates. After Gaugamela, Persian cities responded pragmatically. Babylon surrendered peacefully. Susa followed. Treasuries accumulated over generations passed into Macedonian hands. These were not scenes of mass destruction. They were transitions of power. Alexander was no longer a foreign invader. He was becoming the new ruler of Persia. Entering Persepolis, Persepolis was different. It was not a strategic capital. It was a symbol, a ceremonial city built to embody Persian world order. Alexander walked through halls designed to humble foreign visitors. Reliefs depicted nations offering tribute to the Persian king. For a moment, history paused. What happened next would define memory. The burning of Persepolis. One night, fire consumed parts of Persepolis. Ancient accounts disagree on motive. Some suggest symbolic retaliation. Others describe impulsive decision-making. Some argue it was deliberate messaging. What matters is what followed. The ceremonial heart of Persian kingship was permanently damaged. Whether intentional or not, the message was unmistakable. The old order was over. Persia's unexpected survival. Yet Persia did not vanish. Alexander adopted Persian customs, retained Persian administrators, wore Persian dress, married into Persian nobility. He did not aim to erase the empire. He aimed to inherit it. This choice unsettled his own followers and confused Persian elites. Alexander was no longer purely Macedonian, but he was not fully Persian either. An empire without a successor, Alexander's sudden death left no clear heir. His generals fought. Territories fractured. New kingdoms emerged. Political unity was lost. But Persian culture endured. Its language persisted. Its systems were reused. Its worldview survived. Persia no longer ruled, but it remained influential. The question that refuses silence. Modern historians now ask a difficult question. Why did an empire that endured centuries collapse so rapidly? Evidence suggests internal fractures predated invasion. Some elites, may have viewed Alexander as a stabilizing force rather than a destroyer. This does not diminish Persian achievement. It reveals its complexity. Empires rarely fall solely from external force. They fall when internal belief dissolves. The meaning of the eastward turn, Alexander did not merely conquer territory. He shifted the direction of history. Greek and Persian worlds merged. Ideas blended. Cultures transformed each other. The world did not become less Persian. It became more complex. Closing reflection, Persia did not die at Gaugamela. It did not end at Persepolis. It transformed. Its political crown fell. Its cultural legacy spread. And in the next chapter, we follow that legacy beyond conquest, into the empires that inherited Persia's ideas, adapted its systems, and carried its influence forward in silence. An empire without a throne, the Persian Empire was gone. No king sat on its throne. No army marched under its banner. No capital ruled the known world. To contemporaries, the story seemed finished. But history often mistakes silence for death. Persia did not vanish when its palaces fell. It simply stopped announcing itself. And that quiet survival would become its greatest strength. After the fire came continuity. When Persepolis burned, observers believed an entire civilization had ended. Alexander moved on. His attention shifted eastward. New rulers claimed authority. Greek influence spread across former Persian lands. But daily life did not reset. What they inherited from Persia was not grandeur, but functionality. Persian administrative knowledge became the foundation of governance. Roads, taxation methods, and local autonomy were preserved because they worked. Persia no longer ruled visibly. But without Persian systems, no one ruled effectively at all. The quiet power of memory, political power is loud. Cultural power is patient. Yet Persian influence shaped how they governed. Laws followed Persian logic. Local elites trained in Persian tradition advised foreign kings. Even conquerors relied on the very culture they believed they had replaced. Persia no longer commanded obedience. It commanded relevance. The long pause before return, centuries passed without a Persian empire. But the idea of Persia never faded. It waited. Reclaiming identity, the Sassanids revived Persian titles, symbols, and cultural traditions. They emphasized continuity with ancient Persian kingship. This was not nostalgia. It was legitimacy. By reconnecting to the past, the Sassanids rebuilt authority rooted in memory rather than conquest. Persia was once again a global power. Persia and Rome face each other. Under the Sassanids, Persia stood opposite Rome. Two empires, two systems, two visions of order. They fought. They negotiated. They influenced one another. For centuries, neither could dominate the other. Persia had returned, not as a shadow, but as an equal. A golden age without announcement. Sassanid Persia did not advertise its achievements. But they were profound. Art matured. Architecture expanded. Learning flourished. Persian scholars preserved knowledge from Greece, India, and earlier civilizations. Ideas were debated. Texts were translated. Knowledge was protected. Persia became a bridge between worlds. Religion as structure, not force. Persian religious thought evolved into a more organized system that influenced law, ethics, and governance. Yet diversity remained. Different communities practiced their beliefs while participating in imperial life. Order was maintained without erasing difference. This balance had always been Persia's strength. Exhaustion returns. No civilization escapes fatigue. By the 7th century CE, Persia was strained. Long conflicts weakened resources. Internal politics grew unstable. Borders became difficult to defend. History began to repeat itself. A new force from the south, from the Arabian Peninsula, emerged a new movement. Unified, motivated, rapid, Persia faced a challenge it could not easily absorb. The old patterns of delay and division returned. The end of political independence. Persia's final kings resisted. But the empire could not respond quickly enough. Internal fractures slowed coordination. Political sovereignty ended once again. Another empire fell. But Persia did not disappear. The greatest adaptation. This time, Persia chose adaptation over restoration. Persian administrators served new rulers. Persian scholars preserved and expanded knowledge. Persian culture blended rather than resisted. Persia stopped seeking a crown. It chose influence. Language, poetry, and identity. Persian language evolved. Persian poetry spread across regions. Persian thought shaped governance, art, and philosophy far beyond its borders. What conquest could not erase, culture carried forward. Persia became immortal through expression. What archaeology reveals. Modern discoveries reveal continuity where collapse was expected. Cities rebuilt themselves using Persian layouts. Administrative logic persisted centuries after political control ended. This was not coincidence. It was legacy. The myth of sudden endings. History often teaches that empires end when capitals burn. Persia proves otherwise. True power is not only held by armies. It lives in systems, in ideas, in traditions passed quietly between generations. The question that redefines empire. If Persia survived conquest, collapse, and reinvention, what does it mean for an empire to fall? Was Persepolis an ending? Or the moment Persia stopped ruling openly and began shaping the world in silence? Closing reflection, Persia refused to die because it understood something rare, that influence lasts longer than authority. That culture outlives conquest. That memory, once rooted deeply enough, cannot be burned. In the final chapter, we will explore why ancient Persia still shapes the modern world and how its legacy continues to guide civilizations today. Persia beyond the throne. The world believes Persia is gone. No banners fly across continents. No king sits on a golden throne. No empire stretches from sea to sea. Yet, Persia is still here, not as a force of armies, but as a force of ideas. Not as an empire of kings, but an empire of culture. This is the final truth of ancient Persia, power that survives without conquest. After the last fall, when Persia lost its last political independence, many assumed the story had ended. New rulers imposed new laws. New languages dominated courts. New empires drew new maps. Yet, Persia had learned a lesson centuries earlier. Survival does not rely solely on force. An empire that influences minds, values, and systems can outlast kingdoms. The empire that once ruled openly now governed subtly from behind the curtain. Power no longer demanded visibility. Its influence endured quietly. The power of the pen, Persia's most potent weapon, was never the sword. It was writing. Scholars copied texts. Scribes preserved knowledge. Libraries safeguarded science, mathematics, medicine, and philosophy. When Europe later rediscovered these ideas, it was through Persian hands. Centuries of progress survived because Persia remembered. The empire's longevity lay not in borders, but in the preservation of thought. Civilization as poetry and memory. Over generations, Persian culture internalized its strength. History became legend. Identity became language. Stories became poetry. Poets chronicled kings, justice, loss, and survival. They reminded people who they were, even when conquerors claimed otherwise. While armies could be defeated, memory could not. And Persian poets ensured the empire endured in the minds of its people. Cities that would not disappear. Archaeology tells a quiet but remarkable story. Persian cities were not abandoned. They evolved. Markets continued to operate. Roads and irrigation systems remained in use. Daily life carried on even as empires rose and fell around them. Persia adapted to change, rather than collapsing in its wake. Its endurance was invisible, but effective. The blueprint for future empires. Persia's lessons did not end with its political decline. Future empires, believing they invented governance, often imitated Persia unknowingly. Centralized administration, provincial governance, respect for local customs, efficient communication. Rome, Islamic empires, and even modern states drew on principles first tested in Persian lands. Persia's methods became a blueprint for governance across the centuries. The modern world's forgotten architect. Many modern concepts trace back to Persian innovation. Tolerance as a political tool. Infrastructure as an instrument of stability. Law as a foundation for order. Persia understood that ruling effectively required order, not fear. It reshaped societies quietly, influencing generations without conquest. Its greatest victories were structural, not military. Persepolis and the fire. Persepolis still lies in ruins today. Broken columns reach toward the sky. Carvings fade under centuries of sun. But these stones tell a different story than the one often told. They speak not of defeat, but of confidence. A civilization that believed even time itself could not erase it. And in many ways, that confidence was justified. Why Persia still matters. Persia's greatest victory was survival. Other empires vanished completely. Names forgotten, languages lost, cultures erased. Persia endured. Borders shifted. Kings changed. Rulers came and went. But the ideas, culture, and identity of Persia persisted. Its influence spread quietly, often unseen, but profoundly. The final revelation. History teaches that power is loud. Persia teaches something different. True power can be quiet. It survives defeat. It outlives conquest. It shapes the future without asking permission. Persia did not win history by the sword. It won through influence. The question left to us: if Persian ideas still shape law, governance, and culture across centuries, if its influence reaches across continents, if its voice echoes through literature, administration, and philosophy, then did the Persian Empire ever truly fall? Or did it simply stop declaring itself an empire, while quietly continuing its rule through thought and culture? The legacy that cannot be burned. Fire destroyed Persepolis, but it could not destroy Persian thought. Stone falls. Empires crumble. Armies are defeated. Ideas endure. Systems endure. Memory endures. And that is the final truth of ancient Persia, an empire that never truly ended. Its crown may have vanished, but its influence is eternal.